This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to a podcast of Rare Antiquities. Today we are going to review episodes 2 and 3 of Star Trek Picard, Season 3. Welcome back to the show, guys. This is our second review of the season. So how's everybody getting on tonight?
Doing good. Sipping on some chamomile tea.
Yeah. Did you take sugar with that?
No, I'm off sugar now.
I'm off the sugar. Now I got this chamomile tea addiction.
That's right.
All right. Well, shit. I mean, we don't have too much of a format here. I assume we've all just watched episode 3, so that's probably fresher in our minds than episode 2 from last week. But maybe let's start with episode 2 first. Jack Crusher, Beverly's son. There's some intrigue on the Titan. Raffi's on this secret mission. So why don't we just kind of talk through episode 2 first, and then we'll jump into episode 3. So Harry, why don't you, I don't want to go through the plot, but what stood out to you in episode 2? And I'm sure you got plenty of nitpicks.
Well, I always have nits, Jeff.
Yeah.
But what I loved, and finally, after 2 seasons of Picard actually seems on top of things. I really, really dug that. And it's the same with episode 3, is that he was not waiting. He was proactive, not reactive. He was leading, and I really dug that. How he was putting without anyone telling him what to do, he was putting those transporter modules there to block being transported out. Him and Beverly and Jack and Riker there on the ship. So he was doing that. And I loved later in the episode where he was sitting in the jail cell. I think Jack was in the brig, correct? So He was talking to him, figuring out what to do with him, saying, I only have 18 minutes to figure out what I'm going to do with you, because the big bad, which we could talk about, Vadic, I guess a bit later, she, for some reason, wants Jack, and all these other people are just hunting Jack, which we'll find out in episode 3. And I really dug that. That was fucking awesome. So I was so happy to see that. What else did I like? So we could talk about anything in episode 2, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So obviously the end of the episode, my man, Worf, back in the fold, coming in badass. I love it. I mean, I didn't need to see another decapitation in modern Star Trek here.
The first one?
Well, I mean, don't you remember all the decapitations in season 1 of Picard with your good friend Elnor?
Oh, right. Forgot about Elnor, and so did the show.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That was a shocking moment there.
We didn't touch on this because I guess it was just lost. In episode 1, when Raffi was talking to the computer, I thought she was just talking to a computer.
I did
too. An
too.
Intelligence. In reality, it's a secret handler on her operation that she's doing for. Is this for Starfleet? I don't. It's weird. I don't even know if it is for Starfleet.
So Worf's the handler, and they say, and this is episode 3, where Worf is like, our goals align. You can think of me as an independent contractor or something like that. So
subcontractor. Subcontractor.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I won't talk about Worf in episode 3, but I loved the intro. And Michael Dorn is just a fucking badass.
He's killing it.
He's killing it.
Killing it.
Yes. Killing it. Right back in. The first line he says, forget the little action scene, which is kind of fuzzy because Raffi's kind of hit over the head or whatever. But when he says, I told you not to engage, or something like that. And that's where I think the only line he says in episode 2, that was awesome. Just the way he delivered it. That's just Worf. He just stepped right back in without breaking a sweat. And I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. It was good. I wonder if it's easier for Dorn to step back into it because you get all the makeup and gear on. So, you look in the mirror and you're a different person. You look at yourself and you're a different person. I wonder if that helps as an actor or whatever. I think Spiner's talked about that in the past. But yeah, I completely agree. I love Dorn. I wonder if he has access to Tom Cruise's stasis chamber where you don't age.
He takes really good care of himself.
He's
less muscular now. He's much more thin, but still in shape, right? So he's a boss.
He definitely brings that athleticism to the role. You can even just tell, like, just kind of when he's walking around versus some of the other actors who, I mean, I'm not trying to be ageist about it, but, you know, like many of these actors, you get up in years.
They lurch a little bit more than they used to.
It is, but it's also partly, I think, like, probably if you were to meet them in real life, they'd probably just walk around like, you know, average folks do, right? But you're on a set, like, you're there for like, you know, 12 to 16 hours. Like, fuck, I just want to sit down. Okay, we're doing shot 17 today. All right, we're going to move around. But like, so sometimes, it can sometimes feel like they don't quite have the energy there. And I don't really think it's their fault. It's just the nature of filming a TV show sometimes. But like Dorn really brought it in terms of just like overall like physical energy, even though he's not like quite the Hulk that Worf was in TNG DS9 era.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess then, like, I mean, maybe we could talk about Vadic separately, but outside of that, again, just digging the attention to detail, you know, the visual effects, the score. You know, I really liked the bridge crew here too on the Titan, the no-namers. And I feel like after one episode, they almost have, I can relate to them more than I ever did on the bridge crew on Discovery.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. Maybe they got combination of luck and just, who knows, maybe good chemistry, but they do feel like a crew. Like I could believe that it's been 6-year journey for this crew, or maybe 5, right? I agree with you there, 100%. You feel like they've been together for some time, and they seem to work. And I agree. I mean, Discovery did some work on that later, and because they never really intended it for it to be that type of ensemble show, right? And they sort of changed that a bit later, but completely agree. I still couldn't tell you the names of just about anybody on the Discovery bridge. If I really thought about it, I probably could, but you're not wrong.
Fair enough. So I'll leave it at that. I mean, I enjoyed the episode. I'm trying to remember if there's more details, because I know Beverly was in hibernation there in stasis, and then the Jack stuff, Picard stuff. I'll say this. I found a bit of the dialogue a little weird, and they're doing it for dramatics, like to make it more drama and to give the surprise that Jack's the son of Picard at the end. I found it just hilarious that when Riker and Picard were talking after, you know, Riker and Picard seeing Jack, and Riker's telling, you know, you don't see a resemblance. You don't see what's going on here. You remember they had a couple of conversations in episode 2 like that. And it's like, why didn't you just come out and fucking say it? It's just forced dialogue for the twist to come out at the end.
See,
and I guess
I like that because we're all in on it.
Yeah.
And Riker says to him at one point, he's like, "Are you serious? You don't see it?" Because in the look on Picard's face, he knows. But I don't know. I thought that was actually pretty good. Like Riker's so incredulous that he doesn't see the resemblance. He says it because he's talking about it through the whole episode. Like, he reminds me of somebody with a little like wink and a nod, but not to us, to Picard.
To Picard, yeah.
Yeah. I thought that actually was an asset there. I thought that worked really well.
Okay. Well, that's all I'll say for now. If we could maybe talk about more stuff later.
Jeff, I'm with you. I kind of like some of those moments where they're not like being explicit about it up front. Like they're kind of acknowledging that like the audience is sort of caught up on what is going on, because there is that dialogue that they have in the turbo lift. Also, when he calls Picard like Jean-Luc, like it's sort of weird. I get that their relationship has evolved to that point, but it's kind of strange.
It's weird to hear it.
To hear him say Jean-Luc, especially like when they were all working together. Like when they were less formal, they would just call each other by their last name.
I mean, Picard was called Riker, Will, or Number One. He very rarely called him Commander Riker, but it was always Captain.
Yeah, exactly. But I like that dialogue in the turbo lift. He's like, "Are you serious? Like, are you not seeing this?" Like, I really like that. Yeah. So actually, just to maybe contrast a couple things to Harry there, I actually found some of the action in this episode just to be languid. Like when they get aboard, what is Jack and Beverly's ship called? I forget the name of their ship.
I think they say Helios or Helios. I'm not sure. Something like that.
Helios. That's right. Yeah. I don't know. Like when they were trying to like sort of fend off the Shrike there, it's like, well, they have no shields. I mean, it sort of seems like Jack could have been beamed off at like any time. And it sort of took forever. Like, I don't know, like the action.
It took a while for them to try it, right?
Yeah. It's just like, oh God, this action is just like, it felt like we spent like 15, 20 minutes on a scene that should have been about 30 to 45 seconds. of like better action. And then other thing, like just it's just like everything was kind of slowed down so much because then when they're back on the Titan, and then it's like, okay, you got to beam Jack over. It's like, okay, Shaw's like, hey, put him in the brig, and then there's some dialogue that is kind of meaningless. And then Picard is talking to Jack in the bridge, like, I got 18 minutes to give. It's like 18 minutes. Like, what happened in the last half an hour? Like the time in the episode was so weird. It was just like, it was so like the pacing was all kind of off to me. I also didn't like that. I like the introduction of Shaw in the first episode. And we sort of talked about like, we don't get this kind of character really in Star Trek that often where he's just like kind of a dickhead. In this, he felt like, I don't know, like almost cowardly. Cowardly is maybe the wrong word. There is a very un-Starfleet like demeanor to him where like I understand that he's like, okay, this is not a warship, we're a science vessel, but he was almost like angry that he is in a situation where like an unexpected situation. It's like you're not running a transporter from like Earth to Mars, bro. Like you're on the frontier.
They come in on Tuesday.
Right before the executions.
Yeah. So well, just to kind of finish up a couple of thoughts. The other thing was one, it's a small detail, but the Ferengi, I really liked the change in the makeup where
the Ferengi looked really good.
Yeah, it was like it was much like a much better like flesh tone than that weird fake bodybuilder bronzer that they would always put on the Ferengi in DS9. Yeah, it just looked a little bit more natural, and the ears were just like a little bit less comically large, and he was much more menacing. Like the Ferengi, their initial introduction in TNG, it's I mean, that's like 30 some odd years ago. So it's kind of silly now, but they were a little more dangerous. And I did like the twist that they had with DS9, where they're like the difference in like how they are like so for profit, and there are sort of criminals in there. But I sort of like a little bit more like a gangster style Ferengi in this. I really liked Sneed, I think is the character, which is a great
Sneed.
Ferengi name.
Yeah, and we have the benefit now because it's 1 week since that episode aired. I had heard that in some shots when Raffi was pulling up Sneed on the computer or something, and you had some relations like who he's kind of in dealing with. You got Quark, you got Morn, and you got something else too. So I thought that was funny.
Okay,
yeah. Some nice little details there. I didn't see it, but that's what they said.
That makes sense that they would put in a couple of Easter eggs like that. I'd love to see like Morn is kind of coming back. I'm not sure who the actor
should have been Morn.
Maybe
Quark, who got
I wouldn't want
Quark is not dangerous enough for that.
Yeah, that's right.
No, and Armin Shimmerman's probably a little. I mean, he's also not a young guy, right? So
no, but it's he
probably
wouldn't want to do the
makeup. It wouldn't matter.
I bet it'd be the makeup thing. He did come back for Lower Decks, so I mean, he's game to do the character. But it's probably like, I'm too fucking old for this makeup now.
Yeah, you know what? And I respect that decision. Yeah, too old for this shit.
Yeah,
I'll go back to just on my thoughts there. I really liked Shaw, and I said this probably on our last review. I didn't find him like cowardly. It was more like put upon, and you still get the impression that he's a good captain. He's just doesn't have time for this bullshit. He strikes me as more the type of the type of Starfleet captain who's what maybe Starfleet's supposed to be. Like we're out in the unknown, but we're explorers.
Well, and now you're going to Jeff. He was also kind of put into this position. He was railroaded by Riker and Picard, putting his whole crew
100%
into this position. So he has a right to be miffed about this.
Absolutely, he does.
Yes.
I think they're doing a really good job so far with this character. Is he has every right to be pissed off. He's on an exploratory vessel. We got these guys coming in who think it's a fucking Wild West out here, and we're mapping anomalies. And he's still a good captain. Like at every turn, he's making what we would consider to be good decisions. He's not being stupid. He's not being irrational or letting his anger cloud his judgment. He's doing the things that would still make sense. I think that's a super smart choice for that character.
And to add to that, Jeff, to support your opinion, and I agree with that, in episode 3, Riker and Picard are having a conversation about what to do, fight or flee. And Riker saying, hey, this is not the Enterprise, the flagship of the Federation. They don't have the weaponry that the Enterprise did for them to just say, hey, let's do whatever we want. So it's a smaller ship. And if that's true, if that's the case, which obviously Riker's the former captain, he knows. So that's another thing that's inside Shaw's head.
Yeah.
Right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that detail. I'm finding so far on this season, it is the detail, the story and the details coincide with each other quite a bit. And I like that. The details really just add those layers to the story. You don't just say, well, this doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? It's just, for whatever reason, right? Just for drama or for whatever else, right? But there's some details there you could say, well, why is Shaw acting this way? Well, they add to that even in the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they do a good job. All right, maybe let's talk about Amanda Plummer, and don't remember the character's name because I'm lazy.
Vadic.
Right, thanks. Well, Nathan, tell us what your thoughts are so far on her.
I'm a little mixed. I think that, I don't know. I mean, we haven't really seen enough, but I think that, on one hand, it's like, okay, she's really kind of cool and menacing, and she looks cool smoking like a cigarello in the 25th century.
She looks like she's smoking that cigarette that alien in Star Trek 6 was smoking on the prison planet.
Oh, yeah.
Kinda, yeah. It's like one of those, like, I can't remember what the fuck they're called, but I remember like when I had like a small like period of my life where I'm like, I'm gonna try smoking some cigars, and it's like one of those like kind of roughly wrapped, like vaguely chocolatey tasting kind of. It looks like something like someone in the 19th century like hand rolled and smoked.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, it kind of looks cool, but sort of stupid at the same time. But I dig it, and like, but she's menacing, but also like kind of cartoonish in a weird way. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed to positive on her, but we're not really, I don't know. I feel like we're not really getting enough to like, I'm not really forming a picture on her necessarily. Cool ship, and we'll get to like, we'll get to the portal gun later, but kind of neat. I mean, I love the look of that bridge, like that she's on. Like it's it kind of, that's like really kind of cool. Kind of reminds me of like some of the original trilogy movies of like what they would make the Klingon bridges sort of look like, where it's like smoky,
dark, and
it's like I love that aesthetic.
Like weirdly lit, like you wouldn't light a bridge that way, but
it's just like, why would you light it in such a way that you can't really see anything?
She's really dialing it up in this scene, and I mean, somebody must have been like, okay, like we want you to do what your dad did in that movie that time, right? Like, could you just give us General Chang? That'd be great. And because it
would be hilarious if she was like the daughter of General Chang, but yet like she was still had like that weird whatever the fuck it was from Enterprise.
That Klingon disease from Enterprise.
Like that'd be amazing.
She's got the disease. She's the daughter of General Chang and Tasha Yar.
Oh, there you go. Gold, Jerry. Gold.
Yeah. So, Harry, what's your thoughts on Amanda Plummer?
Well, obviously, you said offspring royalty for Star Trek here for Christopher Plummer, his daughter. Very good first impression. I dug her. As Nathan said, I dug the ship. I dug the bridge. It felt kind of like with the original movies, like Star Trek 3, kind of like Kruge's Klingon ship. It's kind of smoky in there and dimly lighted. It just felt right at home for Star Trek classic villains in that sense. But yeah, I dug her energy. And what I really enjoyed about her in this episode is that she gave them, hey, this guy has done some damage. He's a criminal, and we are just asking you to turn him over to us. And they start off with, I mean, I can't remember. Maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. She didn't fire anything. She didn't shoot at them. She has an imposing ship, and then they talked, and that's what she did. She introduced herself, and then she just asked for Jack Crusher to be turned over, which will be interesting because I really don't know where this goes. I mean, Beverly says something in episode 3 about that, which we'll get to when we talk about that episode. And obviously we don't know all the details. We'll have to see where it goes from there. But I really dug her first impression. And then, she's a little cackling, gleeful after, the chase is on at the end of the episode. And then she starts firing on them. I don't know if I can say this now. I've been waiting forever for fucking Star Trek to use a tractor beam this way.
Oh, to throw a spaceship.
When she threw the shuttle at the Titan.
Yeah.
Fucking glorious.
That
was epic. That was amazing. Because I've always, not fantasized, but I've always wondered why tractor beams can't be used more as a weapon in Starfleet battles, in Star Trek battles.
Yeah.
So now we finally get to see that in action, and that is just, it's so good. So I really dug all of that.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
You know
moment.
what was weird? That they were shocked by it. It's like, that's the first time that someone's done it.
Well,
I thought was weird.
It's now the Vadic maneuver.
The Vadic maneuver, yeah. I'll say this for Star Trek and for this episode here where I feel like it works. There have been episodes, I can't think of original series, but of TNG and I think Deep Space Nine as well, where like when they need to use the tractor beam to do anything more than tow a ship at like
or
warp
push
one,
an asteroid or push
but like it's a fucking problem every time because it's such a strain on the ship. Like there's the episode where Q becomes human and they try to push that moon out of the way of that planet, and it just fucking wrecks all their shit. Every time they try to use the tractor beam to do anything other than something real basic, it's a disaster.
The Groundhog Day episode when they push the ship.
Yeah, that's right. When they push the ship out of the way and cause an effect.
Yeah.
Cause an effect.
Yeah, and it ruins it because it doesn't like it just. I guess it's just that's not that good. So by accident or by design, the technology just never seemed to be all that sophisticated. So when they did it here, and it's probably has a lot to do with how they filmed the scene. We had never seen it before, but it looked like a spectacular show of strength, and it really, really, really works.
And they say like she has advanced weaponry on her ship, so
she's an issue for sure. All right, well, I guess let's talk about the big reveal. End of episode 2, we find out that Jack Crusher is the offspring of Picard and Beverly Crusher. So we'll kind of close out the episode here, Harry. So let's talk about that. But anything else you want to throw in about this episode? Let's do it now.
Yeah, I don't dig this twist. I'm not a fan. I know, like, you know, it's a show about Picard, so they've got to do something for him.
It's literally called Picard. It's not just about him.
Yeah. What's the name?
So I should have known, because in the episode 1 he goes, I don't need a legacy, and then now this is what it is. Which was bullshit, by the way. He said, I'm going to write a memoir. Well, if you're writing a memoir, dickhead, that means you do care about your legacy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it is what it is. I'm not a fan of this kind of stuff. It's just a trope. And I like the fact that when people make decisions, like, you know, Picard, he was attached to his career. He was attached to the Enterprise. Starfleet was everything for him. He made a choice not to have a family.
Yeah.
And now it's just, okay, here you go. And then we've done the Picard family stuff a lot in TNG, Inner Light. Then there was that other one where he had the fake son in TNG as well. And it's just like, I mean, I'm not saying this isn't going to work. It's just, I'm not a fan. I just don't like it. But there is a very, very awesome part about him having a son in episode 3, which I'll get to as a fallout for this. But I'm just not a fan. It's just a creative choice I don't like.
Maybe we'll talk more about it in episode 3 in a few minutes here, because we can dig into it a little bit more. Does anybody else think it's weird that she named Picard's son after her dead husband?
That's right.
Who died under Picard's. It's like your wife having a baby and she names the kid after like her ex-boyfriend that you like killed at a car crash. It's like by accident, right? Like maybe you're driving too fast and he was in the passenger seat, but it's just a little bizarre, isn't it?
Yep. Very bizarre.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was like partly like an FU. Like
it could be. We'll get into that.
For it to be an FU,
you'd
you'd have to introduce him to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good point, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen more often in real life. Like, considering the number of people who are willing to name their child Khaleesi, I'm sure there's many more fucked up children names out there, you know, to be honest.
I just think you'd choose something.
License plates. Anyways.
I just think you'd choose something else, like Wesley 2 or something.
I was literally thinking Wesley 2 right before you said it. It's like Wesley again.
Yeah.
Because it seems like she's still bitter about it. He's off in space-time.
Wesley's on another plane of existence.
He does
not visit his mother, it seems, and she's bitter about it.
Oh, yes. This is all Wesley's fault. Let's just be clear. He can't catch a break.
And he could probably fix it. He could. He could fix many of these problems. He could fix it.
No, he's just an observer and a traveler.
He can't still talk to his mom. Hey, Mom, I'm traveling, but how's it going?
Well,
I don't know about that.
Which is weird because they popped him into season 2 of Picard for that one scene. It is odd that they're like, you know what?
He's going to
Like-
show up to like Riker and Deanna's wedding, and then that's it.
Yeah.
He's out of there.
He's
He's going to yeet out, as the kids say, and like, yeah, we're gone.
I wonder if he shows up in season 3 here.
No, I doubt it.
You gotta, like, his agent's on the phone, right? He's just getting busy.
Oh, yeah. His agent's saying, please, please. There's reason I should be here now. There
Like,
you
maybe
go.
we missed the email or the voicemail or whatever, but like, we're ready to go, guys. Like, we're here.
He's too busy doing his podcast. He doesn't have time for these.
He doesn't have time to
clowns.
be in a
Yeah.
television show. Okay, so let's move on to episode 2, I suppose, unless anybody's got anything else but episode 1. But it's all.
well,
How
just-
about episode 3?
That's what I meant.
Just a quick aside. I mean, what are your thoughts? You guys, you dig the fact that Picard has a son now, or you have to wait and see how it plays out?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a
the
loaded
idea of like, do you dig the idea of him having a son? Well, okay. If you're talking about like at the end of episode 2, I like personally, I actually liked the delivery of his line, and I did like that they sort of played a little bit, or like they danced around it without it being too explicit, and sort of saying the audio, like, okay, we're picking up what you're laying down. So on a writing level, I kind of like that. They're like, we know what's going on here, right? And so the last line of he is my son, no other actor could have delivered a stupider line than Sir Patrick Stewart. You see it coming from a mile away, that line, and it's like not the best written line or whatever, but like it totally worked for me, given sort of the context of it. Now, as to whether or not the idea of it we can engage with afterwards. I liked it, and like, you know, like the pan in shot and everything like that. And we haven't really talked about 7 of 9 at this point. It's weird that she was not immediately arrested for insubordination at the start. Like it almost kind of happens at the end of the episode.
He relieves her of duty. He doesn't like
But she's still
throw
around.
her to the.
But she's not
No, but
confined
there's
to
a-
quarters till
No, no.
basically the end of the
Well,
episode.
yeah, but like he isn't like being a huge dick, and like there's a crisis, and she is helping, right? It kind of made sense to me at that point, where
Yeah.
like she's kind of getting back into the action. He wasn't considering her to be a threat to the ship and confining at that point.
Yeah, you know, but I do think that there's like the character of Shaw is actually pretty interesting, I think, in sort of the grand scheme of things, especially with I think the juxtaposition of 7 as like that dynamic. Like we don't often really see that in Trek. Like we talked about how we don't really see the character of Shaw in Trek that often. Like you get like a Jellicoe or whatever, but you often do not see a first officer and captain out of lockstep like that. I thought it was an interesting dynamic because you're automatically on 7's side, because like, you know, you all
Because
love
7
her.
of 9, yeah.
It's 7 of 9. We love Jerry Ryan, and you know, like, so she's such a badass that it's sort of weird. It's like she's kind of like, is she in the wrong or not? I'm not really sure. It's sort of a weird. I don't know. I really liked it. I wish that, like, I mean, you could almost do a show just on that alone.
I don't know if I gave away this on the last one, but like, or thought about this, but like, I mean, can we get a 7 of 9 show now?
Can we have a 7 of 9 with Worf show?
Yeah, well,
Because
why not?
like Dorn is back.
I just want.
Jerry
I don't-
Ryan is killing.
give
it.
me
I don't
more
think,
Worf.
but here's the thing: is I was just listening to a couple interviews. I think he wants to be in it, but I think he's out on just the fucking makeup. You know, like it's so much,
And that's
Right.
a fair point, right? Because
especially
how many?
for TV. Yeah,
Yeah, like how many hours of makeup does the guy have to go through?
He should
Okay.
just not take it off.
yeah. You
Simple.
should never take it off.
Never
He should be
take
like
it
one of
off.
those weird
He's-
like lizard men who like have their faces like surgically altered.
Because Dorn's probably done more hours of Star Trek than any other actor, right? He's been in more Star Trek than any other single human being. So I think he loved doing it, but he's just like, oh, the makeup, you know. So
They can't like, well, I guess like maybe it's budgetary considerations, but it's like, man, we can't like deep fake that, make him just like look like Worf all the time.
I just
now?
don't think it would look right. You know, you can do the de-aging stuff, but you can do like the ridges and all of that, the hair and the goatee and everything. I mean, it just seems like it would be, well, whatever. That's neither here nor there. But I want a 7 of 9 spinoff, and I don't care what form it takes. All right, let's jump into episode 3, which obviously just picks up where we left off. Worf, Raffi, the Titan in the nebula after they attack the Shrike. Picard's son. I mean, man, there's all Beverly. There's actually so much going on in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Jam
Direct and Frakes, the deft hand of Jonathan Frakes as in the director's chair for this this one. Well, Nathan, why don't you start for episode 3 here? What was awesome? What are your nitpicks?
The things that are awesome are actually now the Raffi stuff is pretty cool. Now you've introduced Worf into the mix. I don't know. I was not really digging a lot of the Raffi stuff kind of up to this point. Although the thing with Sneed, like the Sneed stuff was, I was like, well, it's kind of a cool scene or whatever. But now that you got like a nice two-hander with like her and Worf, which is kind of fun. I felt like the pacing of this episode was much better than episode 2. It was almost like night and day. Like I really did not like the pacing of episode 2, where I felt like there was like a real loss of tension. We're going back to episode 2 here. You got like 40 minutes, and yet it's like it's supposed to be condensed into like an hour of time of like you have like a deadline to hand them over. And it's like, why are we just like sitting around half the time? So I felt like the way they moved back and forth between the scenes really moved the story forward really nicely for me. I really enjoyed a lot more of the character moments between Riker and Picard and their dynamic. I felt like their relationship is kind of weird now because like we got some of this in season 1, but there's still like a lot of like backstory that we've never really, because we kind of ended with like the movies. And that dynamic never really changed from the show. And there's like a whole like couple of decades. Actually, how much time has really been between
I think
like Nemesis and this? It's like 10 years, 20 years?
No, I think it's essentially like real time for us as well. So like Nemesis came out in whatever, 04, 05.
Okay, so it's almost 2 decades.
It's almost 20 years. I believe that is correct.
Okay. So I liked a lot of their interactions where, especially towards the end of the episode, after Shaw kind of gives command back to Riker, of Riker like becoming very frustrated with Picard, but also not like really willing to like dress him down necessarily, because like this was his mentor.
Until the end, where he says, "You killed us all. Get the fuck out of
here."
There's a dressing down.
That was some cold ass shit.
Yeah,
right fucking there. And like just the defeat in Picard's face is like, oh, I really am a doddering old man who doesn't know anything. I was really confused about what the fuck Picard was doing in this episode, because like we got to attack him. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
It was so bizarre.
It's forced. So that's one complaint I have, is a bit of the dialogue, forced tension. It's just
absolutely
for drama. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
like,
not natural.
It made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. They should have been arguing over how to escape, not whether to escape or to attack. Like, they both should have been like, we get the fuck out of here, guys.
Well, I'm okay with Picard having that suggestion until Riker tells him, hey, the Titan isn't the Enterprise. Yeah. There's no way we would win in that fight. So then once Picard learns that, then it's a different story. Then you're right. Then it should be, how do we get out? How do we solve this problem and get out of this situation without a one-on-one confrontation?
100%. Like, it was so bizarre. Actually, another interaction I really liked was Picard and Beverly, when he kind of confronts her about like the existence of Jack, and he's like, I should have been there. And it's kind of weird because it's almost kind of like the argument that you get in superhero movies of like why Spider-Man, Batman, whoever can't be with the person that they want to be with. And she's like, you're Jean-Luc Picard. Like, you are literally, your life is in danger week after week. And
almost on that schedule for some weird reason.
Yeah. So it's like, and she knew the day too. It's like, you remember that the Tuesday afterwards, you were captured by Romulan terrorists, It's kind of funny. The other thing was like, oh, they don't have email in the future. It's like, I couldn't tell you. It's like, really? You couldn't just send like a message? It's not like you have to tell them I guess maybe it's best to tell them in real time, but like, I don't know. It's sort of weird. Like, there's many times on TNG when there's kind of sitting around like doing fuck all.
It's space. They're in transit for like 95% of their lives.
Yeah. And that's kind of the funny thing. Like, Orville kind of does that pretty well. It's just like, we're not really doing anything in between missions. Like, we're just kind of sitting here. But I mean, she does kind of bring up like a good point. It's like, you're one of the most famous people of all time. You just have a target on you at all times. I mean, it'd be like, if you think of like a U.S. president, I'm not going to name names, But if they had like a secret love child, right, they would absolutely be a target, because American presidents really are just one of the most famous people on the planet, but also very politically endangered at the same time. It's one thing to be like a celebrity's love child, but he just has like a much higher profile.
See, I'll disagree. I don't buy this at all. And I'll break it down for you here because that's what
please do, because I disagree with your disagreement.
Well, so as you're saying, and they try to make us believe this in Star Trek, and this isn't the first time that these guys are super famous. The galaxy is huge. There are trillions upon trillions of, we'll say, sentient life forms of different species spread across hundreds, thousands of worlds. And the hubris of these people to think we're so fucking famous, we're Starfleet.
Okay, hang on.
No, I are thousands of starships. I believe that they're famous to each other, but I don't think there's any way that they're so famous that there's a, as the quote in the episode, a target on their back. I just don't buy it. You're one guy on one ship. I would
push back on that. If you're talking about like the actual reality of what it would be, yes, it would be so insane, because like the population of the universe in Star Trek is so enormous compared to real life, like this planet of 9 billion people, which is like a pinprick in what would be Star Trek. The thing though is that like an organization like Starfleet and the Federation are huge political players on the galactic scene. And yet you would have certain individuals within those organizations that are like the power players. And Picard is just one of those power players.
I believe
and also, but in the reality of it, that is true. We do see that. That is an actual fact.
It happens, but it only happens because the show says it happens.
Yes.
And every time they do that, I call bullshit. I believe that the like Kirk, Spock, Picard, Data, I believe they're famous in Starfleet.
No. Kirk is famous galaxy-wide. Come on.
But he's not. He's famous in Starfleet. Everybody else.
The Klingons know his name. The Romulans know his name.
They know that maybe like some of those like real war nerds know, like, oh, this guy did the battle of whatever at this other thing.
I would argue.
There's no way. There's no way in the real world. There's no way these guys are famous beyond this particular.
Kirk would be a legend.
No, he wouldn't be. And amongst
in the future, there are
how many famous Navy captains can you name for me in real life?
Zero. But the problem is though that hang on. First of all, we are not alien space terrorists. For one,
no, we're not. So, we're regular people on the same planet as these Navy captains. That's the thing, though.
If you were to listen to political podcasts, like they sort of have like they may not be able to like name every single like naval captain necessarily.
But that's my point. Is if you listen to that stuff, which is super niche. In this galaxy, I believe that they would be known in this one particular niche, like this one Starfleet captain.
And that's all it takes, though. That's all it takes. If you were in a galaxy full, the thing though, that's the problem though, is that like Starfleet and the Federation are political players, and if your top pieces are potential targets.
There's a better way. There's a better way to play it. There's a better way to play it. That
Let's
would be
end
easy.
This. One, for time, I think we should move on. And two, I disagree. All the offspring that Kirk has sired throughout the galaxy, they all scream his name, Kirk.
That's just really creepy. It's just really weird, man. There's a better way to play it. I'll put my last word on this, and I'm running the show, so I get the last word. Easy way to play it is you've made enemies. So like you could say that the specific people that you've crossed, like a Tomaluk, for example, like you screwed that guy, you did this thing to that guy, like you made enemies in your work and they're taking numbers and they're going to come back. Like that's believable. But just people gunning for you because you're famous doesn't add up. So
I think there's more to say about the Beverly Picard thing. I'll talk about it when I get a chance. But yeah, you guys go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say, like, their conversation there. Here's my take on it. If you need that much exposition to explain why Beverly would cut off her entire family, you need that much explanation for it. Patrick Stewart did a good job. Gates did a good job. You need that much explanation. It means you know, like you're writing it and you're like, okay, well, we really need to fucking get some hula hoops out here to jump through because we know this doesn't work otherwise, right? So and I mean, I can accept it just because we got to we've got a show to watch and this is the situation they're creating. So like I can cut them some slack there, but didn't buy it. All right, Harry, your turn.
I loved that my favorite part of this episode was their conversation, mainly for the performances. Like, did you see my favorite part? Did you see the steely look that Picard gave Crusher when he walked in and everyone left medbay or sickbay? And that look he gave her, it could burn through metal. It was so good. And I loved their conversation. I loved the tension. And you could see both sides. Now, in reality, because Picard is 100% right. And I love this. You don't get to make those choices without informing me. I believe that. And if they had a relationship, a serious one, again, off and on 5 times, and she got pregnant, she should tell him. And if she was fearful for her son's life, then she should say, you know what, this won't work with us and it won't work with you for the safety of the boy. So I'm leaving and I need to keep him safe away from you. That's my opinion. You have to give him at least that much right. And then he gets a choice. Picard, well, if that's the case, then I leave Starfleet. Despite the fact that she says, well, I know you would never leave, which is what she says in this episode, because you love it. You love the attention. You love the being captain, and you love getting into adventures, which gets you into trouble. But she deserved to tell him that. So I find this a bit convoluted, just for dramatic sake. Again, going back to the writing. But man, the scene was so, so good. I loved it. That was my favorite part of the episode.
That was actually another part that I enjoyed, was when she kind of called him out. It's like, you love being who you are and what you represent.
Yeah, like, what does she say? She says, when the galaxy calls, you don't feel put upon.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of The Dark Knight, when what's-her-face is like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but the sentiment is, you can't stop being Batman because deep down you love it.
So I just have a general question for both of you, since we're talking about this. Do you agree with what I said? She should, if you're talking about 2 mature adults, and these are supposed to be, she's supposed to be mature. She's, not evolved, but the Starfleet, in the future, you have rights. I know you're scared. You have a right to be scared. You don't want to still talk about this with the actual biological father and then say, I'm making a decision for the safety of the child and I'm leaving Starfleet. And then, yada, yada, yada. Would you guys agree with that or no?
I don't know. Like, that's a real tough
call. What's the question? Sorry.
Well, do you agree with she should have at least have told him? Give him the opportunity. 100%.
I suppose, I mean, there's an argument to be made that yes. But I mean, I think like from her point of view is that like she feels that I think her point though is like, you could never give up being you. You have such a bullseye on you and everyone around you.
Well, the thing is,
I think that it's a good, I don't know, like there's no like good answer necessarily to it. Like it's not like there's no like black and white answer of like yes or no. I understand like Picard's point of like, maybe I could have changed, because he is basically saying is like, okay, you're not wrong, but I could have just retired.
Yeah, we'll never know because I might have. Yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is like all of her words make sense. Her justification makes sense. I agree with Harry. Like she should have told him.
It's just like Wrath of Khan. Like we learned that Kirk had a son.
Yes,
but he made a decision. Knew. Yeah,
she told him. That worked. We never knew Kirk had a son before that, right? It never come up. It comes up here. It worked really well how they did it in Wrath of Khan. You read it all without them having really a scene about it, anything. Like you knew that he knew, she had told him, but they decided never to tell David. It actually worked really well.
Very well.
Moments. Yeah, it's fantastic. And here, I guess you can't just echo what they did in Wrath of Khan, but because they did so well there, and they're using so much exposition here to like justify why she didn't tell Picard, I think it would have made a lot more sense if she had told him and been like, listen, I told him about you. He doesn't want to see you. And that had been in the past. Like that would have been better. I think that just would have made a lot more sense. I don't believe Beverly cuts out all of her friends and everybody because of that.
I agree with.
Yeah, certainly in like that light, it's sort of weird because of the weird, like the family that they had. I kind of find like her explanation makes sense if in the context of if it was just the two of them, but they have this extended family that she's like, no, I got to like get the hell out of here from everyone. Yeah, then it's sort of strange. strains credibility a little bit.
Yeah. And it doesn't ruin it for me. I'm just like, I didn't expect to actually argue this point because I just thought you guys would agree with me and we'd move on. But anyway, so let's move on. It's actually not, if you're going to do a reunion show, you got to have a reason to split them all up. And if this is the reason, then, that's fine.
And in practicality standpoint, you have to give Gates McFadden some meat to chew on.
And I'm all for that because we're going to have her have sex with a lamp again. I just don't think it's going to fucking play. She'd probably do it, but, I'm glad they're giving her. And she's great. I mean.
She did great scene. That was
she's fantastic.
Awesome. I love that scene. Great.
And I think I said this before, but I'm so impressed with her and Frakes as well. Like, they haven't acted in so long, and they just step back onto the set, little makeup, and they're old friends, and they're right back in it. And I think it's fantastic.
Like back to form in a way that like outshines many of the other actors on the show.
Yes.
Which is, I'm kind of glad that they don't bring back some of the other actors from some of the other shows, because they would just, I think the dichotomy between the skill would be too much to handle.
Yeah, like if they tried to throw in, I was going to say O'Brien, but O'Brien is actually really, really good. So anyway.
I was going to say like a Harry Kim. Like you couldn't have Harry Kim as the captain of the Titan. No way. Doesn't work. Sorry.
Yeah, only if he immediately got killed.
Oh God. I don't think the fandom would stand for that.
Or a Tom Paris just shredded by a bat lethargist immediately. Like Collateral Damage as Worf is killing that, slices off that Ferengi's head, and there's Tom Paris standing right behind him with the drink because he's a bartender now. Anyway, so let's move on. I guess we've spent enough time with that. Shit, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, they're just playing hide and seek in the nebula here. Harry, give us your thoughts on episode 3 here. It was awesome. Any nitpicks?
Okay, so it talks about the Beverly Picard scene. What I also really loved was Worf, of course. I love when he introduces himself to Raffi. He goes on, "Who are you?" And he goes, "Son of this, son of that, house of this." And then the chamomile tea line. Oh, I bust out laughing. That was fantastic.
That was great.
It's so great. Oh my God. I love Worf. And I do not like Raffi as a character. I don't think Michelle Hurd's a very good actor as well. I think she's out of her league here, in my opinion. But I am now finally looking forward to a little bit more of their dynamic. So they're trying to show that he's changed. He's a bit more pacifist, even though his first action was to decapitate somebody in the previous episode. But it looks like then they're going to be kind of like, the mentor relationship, because he calls her, "I could see that you're a warrior, despite that you're addicted to how many drugs." Be that as it may.
Recovering addict.
She's a terrible character. But I'm hoping that her teaming up with Worf will improve her character somewhat. So I am looking forward to that. So I'm digging that. Do you want me to get in my nitpicks right now?
Well, yeah, I asked you.
Okay. So Changelings, Great Link, the Dominion, Founders, all that stuff. I'm not sure I dig it. I mean, I know it's a terrorist.
That's not really a nitpick, though. We're not there. Like, we don't know what's up yet with those.
No, guys. We don't. It just feels, to me, it felt shoehorned. Feels shoehorned in.
That's really obviously a major point, though. That's not a shoehorn. That's going to be a major plot point.
I don't know. To me, I have to see where it goes.
The whole thing, right?
Dude, of all the people who would not like that, I'm surprised that you would say that. Because if there's any way you're going to get Cisco back.
If Cisco appears in this season, which obviously you won't, then I forgive anything. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want.
I disagree. Well, okay, you keep going, Harry.
Okay, anyways. The cloak and dagger stuff with the changeling on the ship is logical for the sabotage and all that stuff, so I dug that. I just don't know about their involvement here. I hope it's a bigger play. I thought they said, when Worf was talking about them, he said that after the war, there was a split. Then they formed a terrorist cult or something like that. Some of the
a splinter group, yeah.
Splinter group or something. So I don't know, because if you look at this, now think about it. We still have Moriarty coming through the hole here. You got Laura coming through the hole here. You got now these guys, and you still have Vadic. You're telling me this is all linked? And it has to be a masterful job to make this work. It's just, it feels like it's getting
obviously all linked, though, right? Because she's got the portal gun, which is the terrorist attack. That's the weapon that was stolen from the Daystrom Institute.
But also, supposedly, that's a red herring for what they...
Right. It's already all linked is.
So you're saying it's the Great Link?
Well, it's the offshoot of the Great
No
Link.
pun intended. No, you didn't get the joke, but that's.
I mean, I was just used to jokes being funnier, I guess. I don't know. No, it's obviously connected. This is I know. I thought you were going to be all in on this, so I'm a little surprised. But that's okay. We'll see. Well, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, it's all in the execution, as we often say on the show, right?
Sure. Yeah, and we'll have to see. But the other thing that I did like was the Riker Picard tension on the set. I dug some of it, but I just found then it's really, as you guys said, Picard's it's the anti-Picard. We have to fight right away.
Yeah.
First instinct. It's like, isn't that, the other way around? Shouldn't it be the other way around? That's not really Picard. And then at the end, when he says, you doomed us all, get the fuck off the bridge, I laughed my ass off. I was like, oh boy.
They're going to put him in an escape pod and shoot him down some ice planet.
And it's a little harsh because at the end, like they were put into, because of that awesome portal gun, they were put into a no-win scenario at that point from anyone's perspective. So then Riker, I guess, agrees, saying, yeah, we got to fight now. They line up behind them in a very Wrath of Vadic style, which was kind of cool. I dug that. They shoot, and then the portal gun was used so effectively. It was awesome.
Yeah.
How Vadic just, puts it back on them. And Riker's upset at him, saying, you killed us all? Get the fuck off the bridge? I mean, come on. I thought that was a little harsh. Considering, the technology that's being used against them.
I agree. I mean, I don't know if I was going to say it was funny. It's not really funny, but when they do that, they come up behind and they shoot the photon torpedoes and they use the technology. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's obviously what they would have done. Didn't they see that coming? But I guess they haven't really dealt with that technology before, so they have trouble wrapping their heads around it maybe. But
yeah, I think so. I think that's the explanation.
Very cool weapon for sure. Lots of neat implications there for action scenes. So I don't know if you guys ever played the video game Portal. You guys ever played Portal?
I know of the game. I never played it.
Yeah, I had more of like Doctor Strange.
So similar thing.
Same thing.
Because they kind of did that, and I was just like,
I think Doctor Strange stole it from Portal. That's what I think.
I think Doctor probably invented it first from the comic books, but I kind of expected like someone to be saying like Dormammu like about 50 times over as they're trying to get away. Nope, nothing. All right.
Yeah, valiant effort.
Yeah.
That's okay. Also, I recommend Portal and its sequel, which I think is called Portal 2. I'm not sure. Anyway, Portal 2, great game. So, all right. Man, I was worried about Shaw for a minute there. When he bashed his head on that beam, oof, that was a tough. He's going to have a concussion there. That was
also their ship doctor sucks.
Yeah,
because like he is clearly in distress, dying, and she's like, "What are you gonna do? Nothing." It's like I can't figure it out. And Beverly's like, "Well, this is like no."
And she's a Trill. She's gotta have like lifetimes of experience.
Lifetime experience.
Yes. Even if it's not as a doctor, it's just like, you've seen this before, man. Come on.
And then she goes, well, I did a scan. And then it's like, I could just hear Dr. McCoy, like, DeForest Kelley just scream from the heavens. It's like, what are we dealing with? The old ages or whatever it is? It's like medieval ages. The dark ages and stuff. It's like, you got to use your hands. You're a doctor.
You got to stick your hands right up in his guts.
That was unbelievable. I mean, he is clearly in distress, about to die, and their doctor is just like, I don't know what to fix.
Yeah, those scans said it was fine, so he's obviously ready to go.
I got
nothing, guys. Got nothing.
Yeah, that was crazy. But I mean, did anyone think it was weird that like Shaw was so pissed that he's like, you know what? You fucking deal with it, Riker. Command is yours.
He's also he's so injured that he's
injured. I think it would have been better, in my opinion, because they zoomed down and show he has a leg injury. I think it would have been better if he actually had like a little bit more of a serious visual trauma, like to his abdomen or his torso or something like that, where he had to go. Here, it's just like, you're a little bit of a pussy, right? Like,
no, he had a head injury, man. His fucking head was fucked up.
His lungs were filling up with blood. I mean, that's actually a more insidious type of injury when like you can't breathe and there was no like outward injury necessarily.
I'm just saying from a visual perspective.
Like, come on, you got all your limbs, dude. Come on. Actually, they could have lopped off a limb, but maybe that would have been a bit too extreme.
I did find it strange. And I know that I'm glad they went down with the sabotage route, that with this, what is it called? Deuterium leak or whatever that is. But don't you think they're saying, how are they tracking us? Why couldn't sensors from the bridge detect that we're leaking deuterium?
That is so
whatever it
weird
is?
because that is so strange because like
Yeah,
the
you know.
idea is that they can track us somehow.
'Cause-
Like,
And they keep talking about it. They actually know something's wrong. How are they tracking us? So let's now do a sensor sweep or something and figure this out.
yeah,
It's like,
I don't
what's
know,
going
like
on?
because the way like Star Trek is, I don't know, like it's one of those weird things in Star Trek where like when you sort of need sensors to be so accurate for the story, and then other times like, oh, we really don't really know, because like a lot of times like in Star Trek, it sort of seems like somebody farts somewhere, like they know about it.
Everybody knows.
And
Yeah.
for this, like a very obvious act of sabotage, like, oh, you're leaking deuterium gas. Like I've listened to people who like have worked on aircraft carriers, and like I'm not saying like those are quite like starships, but it's like everything is monitored, like to the nth degree. So like you're leaking, and deuterium is like part of their fuel source. I think you'd fucking figure it out at some point, unless there's like
You could
a
probably
number of
explain it
sabotages.
away as saying like, I guess we could waste screen time with it, but like the saboteur could have masked like all they need is a scene is like,
Yeah.
oh, the saboteur must have masked our deuterium leak.
But there's an
you know?
entire like section that is like apparently flooded with deuterium, and you
Well, that's
can't
true.
walk into it.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing if it's like
See,
like someone like stuck like a pipe out the back end.
these
you know.
are nitpicks, Harry. This is
Yeah.
nitpicking right
Yeah.
now. This is the nitpick.
Yeah, I know it's a nitpick. This scene's here for Jerry Ryan and the other guy, the Jack Crusher actor, to have something to do in this episode.
Like I was wondering, like, were their communicators broken? Because he tries to
Yeah.
get to the bridge and he gets turned away, and then he goes to 7, and they're like, okay, and she's like, okay, let's go do this thing, and he punches out the security guard. And I'm sorry, you can't punch out somebody with one hit, especially not a guy who's twice your size. But I hate that trope in TV. Oh,
I
boom,
hate
and he's
that.
unconscious. Like, no,
You
no.
have a world of Vulcan pinches. Like, why couldn't she
There
do
you go.
that and
There's a
stuns or
solution.
whatever, something? But like, I'm
Don't do
sorry,
the-
you're not gonna cold cock that guy.
No.
I hate it.
And then they go and find the deuterium leak, and then 7 of 9 calls the bridge.
Like 5 minutes later, after
You know,
seeing the
Riker-
sabotage, it wasn't like, oh,
Yeah.
like she knew it was sabotage right from the get.
You know, Riker trusts you. You know, Picard's like, okay, you don't know Shaw's in sick bay because you're in your quarters, but like, you'd still call Riker because you know that he trusts you. Like, you just call. Like, why don't you call somebody, man? It doesn't make any. I don't know. We're probably getting a little deep into the nitpicks here. So, and Star Trek's full of them. So I'm not gonna like hang the show on.
No, that's a
or-
nitpick. That's a nitpick.
That's a nitpick. So
I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about the bridge crew. I loved the fact that they took the time to give this no-name Vulcan science officer some meat. And they listened to
Yes.
her.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
talking about we shouldn't be going more deeper into the nebula. And she talks about logically we shouldn't be doing this and yada, yada, yada. And they listen to her. Fantastic. I love it. It's great how they're involving. And then there's another scene. I know it's kind of just, talky scene where LaForge's daughter goes to 7 of 9's quarters and talks to her. And, that was a nice scene too. I dug it. It's just nice that, with all the stuff that's going on, it's a fast-paced episode, and Frakes, deft hand we talked about. It's just good. I was just very impressed that they got all this done.
I mean, I agree. I mean, for all of our nitpicking, which is just mostly for fun, it's still very action oriented, but still feels very cinematic Star Trek. And you're totally right with the bridge crew. It's almost like somebody who actually watched Star Trek is making these shows. And that's
Yes.
a real nice change from the first 2 seasons, that we get some actual, even though it's like action adventure, but it is still very Star Trek. It's very keeping with what we know. And I think they're doing a good job playing in that sandbox. All right. And I was on the edge of my seat as the episode comes to a close. Like, good cliffhanger. I mean, it's been a while since I've had a good Star Trek cliffhanger, and thankfully we'll see what happens in only 7 days time. But I thought it was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. And I'm really enjoying the season. They're not wasting any time. We're 3 episodes in, and they've accomplished more than all previous 20 episodes of 1 and 2 combined. Like, right? They meandered for so many. It took forever to fucking get going. And this, boom, boom, boom. I don't necessarily want to say home runs, but 3 solid hits right out of the gate here. I'm glad they're not wasting my fucking time with my legacy characters. Everybody's getting some meat. They're right there. I can't wait. I think Geordie's the only one we haven't met up with yet, so I guess I'll expect him in episode 4, and hopefully it won't be too long before we get the whole gang together. So Perry, what are your final thoughts here, maybe?
Pretty much agree with you, man. I loved these 2 episodes. I mean, I liked the slower pace of episode 2. I was fine with it because, you have agency for the storyline, unlike the other 2 seasons of Picard, where it was just walking around aimlessly. Here, there's focus, so I dug it. And this 3rd episode, more action paced, and I dug that too. And I like the tension. I like the fact that, it's a mixture, right? You got some love and some conflict between these legacy characters here, and using this new Titan crew to pretty much almost like its best potential so far. We'll see. I mean, Shaw might be getting fridged here a little bit, but we'll see what happens there. I love it. I love everything I'm seeing here. So fantastic 2 episodes. Solid recommends for me. Can't wait to see what's next. I'm hooked.
Yeah, right on. So Nathan, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if I dig episode 2 quite as much, but I thought episode 3 was awesome. Yeah, I thought it ended on a great cliffhanger, and I'm really excited for the next episode.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's great. I think we're all in agreement here. What a relief, hey guys, that it's finally good. Hopefully
that it's not a drag. Like we're not just like, oh God, we committed to reviewing this.
It's almost like, it's like that, but it's almost like with season 1 and 2, at the end of every episode, it's almost like somebody had given you like really bad news, but you're like, okay, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. Next week, they're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. That's kind of how I felt like at the end of every episode of Picard. Now it's fine. Like now it's okay. Now we're fine. And that's such a relief. So, all right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up there, guys. Unless anybody has any final thoughts, we'll close the episode there. I think we'll come back again in 2 weeks to review episodes 4 and 5. And I think we're all really looking forward to it.
Yes,
rock
totally.
On. Rock on.
All right. Rock on. All right. We'll talk to you guys next time.